Good afternoon and welcome aboard to Flight CEOR 926. In the cockpit is myself, Captain Daniel Sarpong, and my two first officers, Betty Kennedy and Tynesia Fields, will be flying at a height of 30,000 feet to the island of community engagement. The goal and our vision for this particular flight is promoting a bi-directional relationship between CaTS and the community. Our vision for the flight is basically to ensure that we use effective community outreach approaches to ensure that our partners who are part of the academic institutions of CaTS are able to utilize community-based participatory research principles and methods to foster community engagement for the mutual benefit in terms of research collaboration. The guiding principles for this trip and for this core is basically hinges on the fourth aim of CaTS, which is to enhance and grow the bidirectional relationship with our community and our researchers. And when we define community, our community is basically folks in the inner cities, rural safety net clinics, and basically we're trying to use health literacy, increase participation in research trials to address health disparities, and to also understand barriers to preventive medicine initiatives and chronic disease measures. So the short of this all is that we want to be able to foster a true, trusted relationship which is bidirectional in nature, where community and researchers can come together to solve our problems in our communities. The way we've conceptualized the core objectives are as follows. The three that we want to focus on. One is basically to enhance recruitment by infusing community voice in CaTS research. And the reason why we think this is important is because the end product of our research has to benefit the community. So we need to have a community's voice at the onset and through the whole process of the research. And we do that by focusing on community-based participatory research projects. We also want to build capacity of the lay community and also with the CaTS research community to conduct transformative research projects addressing community health concerns. And lastly, to facilitate bidirectional relationships between these two partners, the researchers and the lay community, and to encourage community academic partnership. So when we look at the fourth aim of CaTS, we basically have translated that into three objectives, but to ensure that the community voice is in place and at the table, we have established three community advisory boards, one in Baton Rouge, Shreveport, and New Orleans. And the community advisory board guides us to make sure that as we embark on these research efforts, that we're not only looking at it through the lenses of research, but also making sure that community lens is in place. So the three objectives and the services as follows. Community voice in research, that objective, the services that falls underneath that is connecting investigators to community experts. Mainly here, we're looking at the involvement of our CABs in terms of giving input in the research that is being conducted. We also look at building capacity in terms of community-based participatory research. Many a times community complains about having helicopter research where the researchers fly in and then they fly out and they never hear from them until another study is about to be implemented. So the service here is to provide investigators consultation on community-based participatory principles and to offer educational events which strengthens their knowledge and the ability to engage the community in the conduct of their research. And the third objective is basically establishing relationship building and also partnership development. We believe that a well-prepared and well-organized partnership will lead to better results and more seamless and more productive research implementation. So service here would be to offer opportunities to building community academic relationships and research participation. So having mentioned those three basic objectives, we want to expound a little bit about what the services that we provide. So under the umbrella of community voice in research, again, we want to engage the researchers and interface with the community. And the way we do that in CaTS is really utilizing our CAP members to provide feedback on research questions, potential research design, recruitment efforts, data collection methods, and even to the point of dissemination. Investigator consultation on design and implementation of recruitment strategies in the local communities. There are members on our CAP who are actually working in various spaces in terms of various diseases like HIV, cancer, cardiovascular disease. So they bring those expertise in terms of engagement with community, and therefore their expertise and knowledge aids in recruitment, better recruitment strategies. The CAP members assistance in expert recruitment for more in-depth research design assistance. Under the umbrella of CBPR capacity building, we provide technical support. And the technical support is providing consultation to investigators on community-based participatory research and community-engaged studies, design, ethics, cultural sensitivity in all stages of the research, and also dissemination of the research findings in community context. And also helping with programming and also even developing intervention. So this is kind of very heavily loaded, but it's again underscoring the importance of community involvement through the whole spectrum of research, from concept to dissemination. And also educational programming on CBPR principles and general community engagement. And recently we embarked on and conducted a community engaged research symposium, which went very well in New Orleans, and we're asking you to stay tuned for one coming up in Baton Rouge and one in Shreveport. So like the movie say, stay tuned, there's going to be one in your neighborhood soon. So again, that is something we're doing in the area of capacity building. Relationship building, partnership development. One of the things that CaTS is determined is to foster this community academic partnership. So being very deliberate about it, the Corps established the Louisiana Community Scholars Program, where we bring both academic and community individuals together as partners, and we're using the multiple PI-ship mechanism that is endorsed by NIH, and NIH utilizes in a lot of these grant mechanisms now. And so far, we've been doing extremely well with this program, even though it's in its infancy. We also serve as liaison, connecting CaTS research community with the lay community members with similar interests. So again, establishing partnership, doing matchmaking to ensure that there is really a bi-directional relationship with community and academic investigators. Intentionally programming with network opportunities, that's also another area where we're fostering this bi-directional relationship. A little bit more on the purpose of the CaTS Community Scholars Program. Basically is to increase the capacity of community academic partnership to conduct community-engaged research with mutual ownership in terms of the processes and the products that comes as a result of these projects. At this point, we're currently in have an RFA out for our third cohort to bring our third cohort on board. The goals of this program is fourfold. First, to increase academic research, investigate research, to promote collaboration and trusted partnership between community-based organizations who are addressing health disparities and CaTS investigators involved in translational research. We're using basically funding a multiple PI community academic partnership pilot projects, basically funding 2 each year, and that's what we've been approved for, is to fund 2 of these. So every year we try to get both an academic PI and a community PI to come together with an idea. And this program also has both a didactic and an experiential piece to it. The didactic is to strengthen the skills so that the researchers in the academic environment really understand CBPR, and the community individuals also understand the science and art behind research, so that they both have mutual understanding in each of the various spaces, so that these research can be more meaningful. And lastly, to stimulate subsequent research funding projects and peer review publication. We really want this to move on from this pilot phase to where this collaboration between academic and community leads to much larger funded projects that address the needs of the community, and also helps to enrich the body of knowledge through peer review publication. We have some success stories, but we felt in the interest of time, we will share with you 2 in each of these 2 broad categories. One being 2 products out of the CaTS Community and Community Scholars Program. In our first cohort, we had our academic partner, academic PI, who was Dr. Adrian Kottner, who is with LSU School of Public Health, and the community partner was Marion Hunt, who is with Southern United Neighborhood. Their project was looking at quantification of lead levels in New Orleans drinking water. This small pilot project has since then yielded to several hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of funding from EPA and other sources, and even had a caption in CNN, I think, whereby they were talking about the issues and the need to address the drinking water situation in New Orleans. In the current cohort, we just highlighting 1 of 2 projects, one being with looking at investing in trauma-informed care for opportunity youth. These are youth who are involved in Cafe Reconcile, being trained for the hospitality world, but because of issues of trauma, Tulane University, under the PI-ship of Dr. Samantha Francois, and the community PI, Kathy Lickfield, have come together to propose a way to not only train these individuals to become more productive in society, but also in doing so and getting them ready for the hospitality field, also deal with the issue of trauma. There are 2 non-CBPR studies. These projects benefited greatly from the Baton Rouge CAB. The first one that we want to highlight is Dr. Redmond's R01. It went in the first time, didn't get funded, came back, sought the input of the CAB members. The input was so useful, it was resubmitted and is now funded. The other one is by Dr. Cara Motlett, who is also with Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and she received a pilot project funding, and again, part of her success is attributed to the input that she received from the Baton Rouge CAB. I'll now hand over to my first officer, Tynesia Fields, and since we're now in cruise and autopilot.
Thank you, Captain Sarpong. So the benefit of equitable inclusion or involvement of lay community members and stakeholders, key stakeholders and key partners in general in all phases of research is increased relevance and validity of your research study and project of researchers across the CaTS institutions, improved relationships between researchers and community, so that bi-directional relationship that leads to continuing ongoing project development, policy development, and sustainable change in health disparities, and sustainable interventions and improvements in quality of life in Louisiana. And so doing this through all phases of research, as Dr. Sarpong mentioned, from conception all the way to dissemination, through the utilization of core services will be highly beneficial in improving the community-based participatory studies and community engagement throughout the CaTS research community. So in thinking about an equitable community engagement process, this CBPR conceptual model shows this movement from the health issue identification stage, what is the perceived severity by partners in the context of geographic location, to the outcomes and the results. And so in looking at those steps, it's important to go from the context to who is involved, who are the partners, and who are the key stakeholders. And so some of them that are listed here are community-based organizations, lay community and folks that are working folks that may not be affiliated with the community organization, government agencies and departments, the healthcare system, et cetera. And in looking in the intervention and research portion, it's important that when community is involved in research, processes that come out of that honor cultural knowledge, local settings and organizations, and they use both academic and community language to intervene in the issue area, as well as leading to research and evaluation designs that reflect community priorities and that engage in a bi-directional translation of the design, the research studies, and dissemination. So we'll talk a little bit about this, but this model shows the entire process when you look and engage in community. So how to engage core services using this CBPR framework and model. We'll look at it using the CBPR framework, but it's important to note that this doesn't only speak to CBPR projects. It also speaks to ways in which community should be engaged and might be engaged in projects that are non-CBPR. So some of the projects that Dr. Sarpong mentioned were successful in using the Baton Rouge CAB input and feedback and receiving R01. So those folks and those researchers in the CAB community engaged the CAB not through a CBPR project, but this was still an important process that they went through. So we'll go through this. In looking at this research project, in research project development, we know that we go from the development stage to implementation, interpretation, and dissemination of the study and intervention. So in step one, the conceptualization of the study, this is where the issue is selected for investigation, a needs assessment and resource mapping should be done, the research proposal is developed and framed, and the study design and ethical guidelines are named and identified. And so at this stage, it is crucial to create a preliminary core service request at the issue selection stage. And this can look like scheduling a discussion with the CAB, reaching out to the CEOR staff, and identifying community experts in the issue area that are of similar interest or that are persons with lived experience that can give feedback and expertise on the issue selection. And so these individuals can alert the team of existing needs assessments that are already here or the priority to conduct needs assessments in this area. The CAB members and lay community members can also highlight potential challenges in feasibility, community relevance, potential impact, recruitment approach, etc., at this early stage, at this first development stage. Additionally, as I mentioned, the CEOR team can provide technical assistance and consultations on community-engaged research principles for research design, for budget development, and the list goes on. As Dr. Sarpong mentioned earlier, there are consultations that can happen we can go in depth in that. And lastly, it's important at this stage to explore the possibility of formally partnering with community-based organizations or one community-based organization. So if there is an pre-existing relationship with a CBO or with community leaders, it can be great at this stage when selecting the issue area to think about whether or not it would be a good idea, and if the relationship is strong enough, to move forward and be ready for a community academic partnership. In step 2, the implementation of the study, here it would be useful to schedule a follow-up meeting with the community experts and or the community advisory board member. So whoever from the community was involved in that first development stage. And so presenting a revised research design, recruitment strategies, budget justification here is necessary. And so the feedback and advice and input that was received in the development stage should be implemented and used in order to revise that design with that feedback. The CAB members and identified experts can provide feedback on and assistance with recruitment and data collection methods. And so here the relationship piece is very important. I think if there's trust and if there is a pre-existing relationship, it will prove easier to ask and to have the community go out and to advocate on your behalf or advocate on the research project's behalf and to begin to recruit and to assist with those data collection methods, ranging from the survey questions to who will be surveyed, who will participate in a focus group, etc. And the community can also determine metrics to be considered in measuring true impact of your study. At this stage as well, there are always going to be opportunities for the core to provide consultation. If there's not the immediate opportunity to present at a CAB meeting, the core is always prepared to connect you with community members who can assist, but also to provide expertise via meetings or phone calls with the core staff. And lastly, noting that if this is a community academic partnership, that the community PI would be involved in the entire implementation process. So not just a follow-up meeting with the CAB or a follow-up meeting with the experts, but really a continued relationship and partnership as it would be with a co-academic PI. And this piece definitely extends to budget development and resource distribution processes when we're thinking about community academic partnerships, as well as simply receiving the feedback and the expertise of community members, thinking about how to give back and compensate folks for their services. And I'll also I'll pass it on to our next member, Dr. Kennedy.
Okay, I guess I'm the next First Officer to Captain Sarpong and to First Officer Tynesia. The step 3 being interpretation of the results, interpretation and dissemination, meaning how do we present our research findings in scientific and lay terms to participating community members, including CAB, community experts, individuals involved in data collection, which may also include focus group and study participants and so forth. The other method is translating research into practice working group. Now, while the current CaTS website is well used by researchers, the New Orleans, Shreveport, and Baton Rouge CABs identified a need for a community website which facilitates sharing information with CAB members and communities statewide, and for advice on recruitment for CaTS studies. And thanks to David Alexander and the Cyber Infrastructures Core, we established our community website in 2017, and the CaTS community website facilitates health promotion and dissemination of our research findings via lay summaries. So the TRIP working group consists of volunteers recruited from our CARE members or their nominees, investigators, as well as students from CaTS partnering institutions. Also, the community can provide guidance in interpreting and translating the results, and community contributes to publishing manuscripts and presenting results. In our next slide, step 4, we have the development of sustainable outcomes, which, if they'll work with our CEO or core and engage community to identify community education strategies by community forums, town hall meetings, and other platforms. We have the TRIP working group again, where the primary goal there is to translate again the research findings into lay summaries, and then to disseminate the TRIP products to the community via the community website, handouts, flyers, as well as brochures. Now, the TRIP working group is responsible for producing health literate and culturally and linguistically competent lay summaries of scientific papers. The TRIP also ensures that scientific discoveries are translated into accessible and actionable information for affected and underrepresented communities. This strategy of leaving something behind in the community being studied has been identified as important by communities to increasing trust in research and research participation. So we also collaborate with our community to develop sustainable and actionable plans to apply findings in ways that impact health disparities. We also share intervention outcomes, policy program developments, new funding, and so forth resulting from study, with the community being engaged along with us. And we also include the assistance from our health literacy core for feedback, the investigators themselves, and the final approval from PIs before we actually post our lay summaries to the community website. Now, the bi-directional, the relationships commitment and giving back, this is where we can enhance the TRIP, actually translating the research into practice working group actually enhances the bi-directional communication between the researchers and the community, as both the community members and CaTS investigators are involved with producing the lay summary. This facilitates ongoing relationship with the community members involved in the project through community education, and it also seeks opportunities for subsequent funding and partnership, and TRIP just being an example of doing this. And recently we have launched a research education campaign based on Dr. Culberson's presentation to our CAB back in December of 2018, where this topic is centered around broadly research ethics and participants' rights in research, and it also included the Belmont report. So this has been initiated here in this CAB in Baton Rouge, but this is applicable to all of our CABs, New Orleans as well as Shreveport, as we move forward in 2020.
Thank you, First Officer Kennedy. So there is, as you see, a vast menu on Flight CEOR in terms of services and how do we access those services. So you can create a Spark request, as was mentioned earlier, and we'll go to that site so that you can see how to put in a request for any of the core services that were mentioned. You can also reach out and contact the community@lacats.org email address for any questions, concerns, or to request a meeting and consultations. Other folks that you can contact are myself, Tynesia Fields, at tfield6@zula.edu, as well as the number there, and Dr. Betty Kennedy, the Community Outreach Specialist in Baton Rouge at Pennington, with her email there. So we're going to take a quick look at the sparklacats.org site. So on your left, under the Browse Service Catalog on your home screen, you'll see all of the cores of LaCats. And if you click on the Community Engagement and Outreach resource, you'll come to a page with our information, our vision, and you can click here in the middle of the screen where it says for more information on the resource, click here to be taken to the community engagement and outreach resource page of the general CaTS website. But today we'll just go to the left and click on the second tab to identify which service you would like to add to your cart. And so, as mentioned before, the services offered are listed here, any of the consultations, but they're not limited to these consultations. It, as we said, a vast menu and everything that we discussed. So simply put in a request and you can share what you would like the consultation to look like or what you think next steps are. But the core staff is also here to help identify what the best next steps are if you simply need some advising on that. So you can add a service, add the core request to your cart. And if it's a new research study or project, which it probably will be that you'll be adding, you click submit. And I know at some points here it adds up, it says a price on the Spark site. The price is always going to be zero because these services are free. And once you add that service, the core service to your cart, you click continue, you'll be logged in and you'll be able to begin corresponding with the core staff member. Someone will reach out to you once that is submitted. We're going to go back to our screen. And you also can access, as First Officer Dr. Kennedy mentioned, the resources on the community site. And so this community site was intended for the lay community members, but researcher communities absolutely can find resources here and also add resources for community members on the site. So let's take a look at the lacats.org community. It's a really useful tool for all of us. So here on the community site, there are events and activities. If we click on events and activities, they're for community members, but also community members at large, so the CaTS researcher community and lay community. You can always ask and request to put a event here, a campaign, research study here that you would like folks to be involved in, and also take a look at the events and activities for those that you would be interested in. So the symposium was listed, the Community Engaged Research Symposium based in New Orleans was listed here. The one in Baton Rouge and Shreveport will also be listed here. So please be sure to check the events and activities page. Additionally, under education and then under community engagement tools, there are downloadable presentations here that give you more information on community-based participatory research, on the strategies, principles, and methods of this community-engaged research approach, and on understanding health inequality and inequity in general. So these are really helpful tools that can give you a broad understanding of a lot of the concepts that we briefly touched on here. And again, reach out to the core for more details and for consultations that are specific, but this can give you a nice overview. Also under education, if we click on lay summaries of research, here is where the TRIP working group products lie. And so the lay research summaries that have been translated, culturally relevant, are here for community members to take a look at, as well as for you all, researcher communities in the CaTS community to learn how to translate research in relevant and culturally sensitive ways, accessible for lay community folks to understand, etc. So this is also a great page to take a look at and also to begin submitting lay summaries of completed research projects. And now I will hand it back to our captain, Dr. Daniel Sarpong.
Well, thank you all so much for a wonderful trip. We finally have touched down at the airport of the island of community engagement. We hope you had a wonderful time with us. I want to again thank my first officers, Betty Kennedy and Tynesia Fields. I think this flight was very smooth with very little or no turbulence. We know that you encountered our imaginary flight attendants, partly because, you know, the menu was so great and that you had to serve yourself because we had a wonderful, wonderful environment, and we hope that you will join us again. Please let us know how your experience with us was on this flight, and we hope in the near future that you will join us again. Thank you so much, and at this point we'll entertain any questions as you deplane. Thank you once again, and we'll be in touch, and have a wonderful rest of the day.